talking with Christina from Fit Mama's Tribe based in St. Augustine, and she's going to discuss with us all things yoga, why it's good for you, pregnancy, postpartum, and beyond. So Christina, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I loved doing yoga when I was pregnant, and I can sing the benefits of it for years to come, but I feel like you're probably more qualified than I am to talk about them. So thank you for sharing your experience with us.
Thanks for having me on. I love talking about yoga so much. So, and prenatal and postnatal yoga. I love talking about it. So this is going to be awesome.
Well, I will say that the ladies at Fit Mama Tribe have a lot of awesome programs that are geared towards women who are pregnant or in postpartum recovery. So this is just one thing that they offer. And Christina, why is yoga good for our well-being?
Oh, well, I think anytime you move your body, there's a connection of mind and body, correct? But yoga is really about finding that connection between the mental and the physical, right? And then learning how to breathe through it all, which seems so simple, but it's really not.
So hard. It is so hard.
It is so hard. So it's about marrying breath with movement. And I think that with that, we're actually getting a big, not a shallow breath, but a big belly breath. Not only is it help diffuse stress, anxiety, but it also connects that movement with it. So learning how to, throughout the day, learning how to take those deep breaths, but also learning how to move through our body mindfully, which I think, especially in motherhood, is just, we don't do that. We do what needs to be done.
It's really important. Get through.
So it's reducing stress. It's reducing anxiety. It's helping you. It's going to make you sleep better with all those kinds of things. And learning, not only is it going to, of course, people always think flexibility when they think yoga, but that's just one little nugget of all of it. People say, I'm not flexible. I can't do yoga. That's why you need to do yoga. It's a practice. It's not a performance. It's a practice, right? We go to practice and we don't go to perform. And so it's going to help with endurance. It's going to help with balance. So it's really like a full body, mental, physical experience.
Oh yeah. That's that breath work. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Really comes in handy during labor. Yeah. What about your yoga journey? What inspires you to become an instructor?
So I was a professional dancer my whole life. I was a Radio City Rockette for 15 years. And it took a toll on my body, and I learned that I had to rehab because I was constantly putting my body in stress. So at first I thought yoga was a little too slow for me, to be honest. Like I didn't really know how to slow my body down to tap into it. So I started going and I thought, okay, I don't know how I could sit here. I'm going to get bored. I'm going to get sleepy. But it started to slowly unravel and peel the onion and realized, oh, this is why you need this. I started out with the harder hot yoga, the Bikram yoga. And then I now slowly start to learn, peel the onion of all the layers of yoga. So I started doing it as a rehab. When I was not doing Rockettes, I needed it for my mental state. It was very hard. I realized I needed to do that. I needed to be still in my body because I was constantly putting my body in stress. And then I loved it so much. I loved talking about the mind-body connection that I realized I wanted to get certified. So I got certified about 12 years ago.
Wow.
And then when I started teaching, I realized I like teaching the hard, vinyasa yoga, the flow. But then I found that the beginners kind of gravitated to me because I love teaching people how to really connect and be like, you can do this. It doesn't need to be this picture of this person with her leg up by her ear. That's not what it's about, And then, I taught all the way through all my pregnancies, and people started, again, gravitating to the pre-postnatal when I got certified, because I'm also obviously a certified personal trainer with specialization in pre and postnatal. And I realized women realized they needed it. They were like, this is what I need. My doctor keeps telling me I need to do this. And I'm like, yes, you do. And, and learning how maybe to dial back their workouts and go and learning how to be mindful in their body. So some people, they don't move their body and then they want to start moving it. And pre and postnatal is a great way to do that as a starter, or people need to dial it back, or balance it out.
Balance it out. I mean, that's what I need. Balance it out.
It's a good balance.
So what makes yoga ideal to practice during pregnancy? Are there any specific benefits?
Yes. And first of all, there's, as we know, as you're trying to adapt for your growing belly, right? You're adapting for your growing baby, and it's kind of very fast paced. So you're growing very fast. And with that, your body has to adjust to that. So we get pains, we get sciatic pain, we get piriformis pain, we get a lot of low back because the pressure of the baby is starting to have that anterior tilt of the pelvis. So there's so many stretches that can happen that can alleviate that pain. And that's really important, especially as you go through your pregnancy. And also taking a moment and be like, what am I feeling this week? Because it's probably different than last week. Because again, you're on a fast track of like your body is growing to adapt to grow, this human being. and there's things that go along with that. There's neck pain, there's back pain, there's calf pain, there's, restless leg syndrome, when you think you have the Charlie horse in your calf and you think it's going to take it down, there's a lot of things that, you're like, this is how it's going to end. You feel that Charlie horse and you're like, it's like,
it's so true. You're like, oh my God.
Why is this earth so bad?
Oh God. Oh my God. That's a really good analogy.
So how it's going down. But it's designed to support the changes in your body. And that's really important. Alongside that, it's important to have community, to be with other women that are going through that same phase. And that's really important as well. Like that support system is really important because you go to your gynecologist, you go to your appointments, but you're by yourself, you're not with other expecting mamas. Yeah. And it's important to hear how their experience is. And so that's also very important. The community part of it is really important.
Oh, I love it. Is there a specific type of yoga that's ideal for pregnancy or for postpartum, or can you kind of do whatever you want?
It depends. I would say hatha yoga, a lot of flows are really good, and restorative yoga is also very beneficial. There's a lot of contradictory things out there, like everything in pregnancy. Hot yoga is not really recommended when you're expecting I think that if you are, depending on what was your practice before, right? And a lot of times, this would not be a good time to try hot yoga. If you were doing if you weren't doing inversions and going upside down before, probably not a great time to do that either. And maybe like a harder, vinyasa flow, that if you're just starting your yoga practice, I would say stick with the prenatal restorative, or a teacher that is really, really knowledgeable in pre and postnatal. That's very important. But I think it depends on what your practice was before and how your body is adapting to that. You have to listen to your body to see what's kind of feeling best for you. And you have to understand that it humbles you because it might not be what you did before,
Yeah, it does humble you. And I know you. What do you mean you can't, touch your toes, or like, what's that one, like tabletop? Not table. What am I talking about? Like your arms are out and you have like one leg back. It's like that. Oh, it's like the standing moon or like half splits or whatever. Like when I was pregnant, I would like fall all the time. And this was like the early stages where I didn't even have a belly yet. You're just like, because everything kinesthetically is very off.
It is very, yes, your balance is definitely off. But if you could be mindful in that on the mat, imagine how much better it could happen. It could help your daily life.
So I like how that you just said that, be mindful on the mat, because how can you take that mat practice into like a delivery room? That's a really good way to look at it. Like that whole like mind over matter, like what's your body telling you? How can you take that into your labor or whatever your method of birth is going to be?
Yes, correct. No matter what method of birth it's going to be, you're going to need that breath, that connection. And a lot of times the breath is so shallow, and that shallow breathing is just, it's not conducive. You're actually going to get lightheaded, right? So you really, that's actually going to put more pressure. You're going to get there. There's going to be less blood flow to your brain. So a lot of people, like they hear Lamaze and they think, You know what I mean? But it actually comes from your breath, right? In your belly. It's that big belly breath. So you're learning how to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. And whether you're prenatal or in life, I always say, you know what, we have to learn how to breathe through it all, right? Like breathing through the uncomfortable. And that's whether you are pre or not pre or postnatal. That is really important, is like learning how to be mindful in your breath so you can learn how to breathe through it all and not have that shallow breath if you're dealing with anxiety attacks or things like that. Those are really important. But going into labor and delivery, it's learning how to be in these postures. And that breath works with your pelvic floor engagement. So it's all connected. So not only are you having that pelvic floor engagement, but then you're really engaging that transverse abdominals. So your corset muscles, right, that holds baby in. Those are the most important when you're pre and postnatal, right? That's what's so important. It's also going to help with labor, pushing the baby down, right? So we want to keep those muscles, those pelvic floor muscles, nice and strong. And it's going to learn how to have that inhale, breathing, and expanding out. And then exhale, feeling that pelvic floor lift and those transverse abdominals in. And a lot of prenatal yoga is all it does is talk about breathing like that. So not only that's your ab work when you're pregnant. That is it. Like learning those are so important. And that's only going to help with labor, with the pushing, whether you're pushing or, and for postnatal recovery. I mean, that postpartum recovery, that's what you're going to tap into first, is you're going to tap into finding those transverse abdominals first. And also to help with, diastasis, which is the natural separation of your abdominals, which happens, it happens naturally in pregnancy to allow for your growing belly, but it can become worse. And sometimes you can help it and sometimes you can't. But that's going to only help try to keep those, keep that abdominal wall strong.
Oh no, that's really good insight. I didn't really think about just the whole muscular structure of like what you're using in yoga.
Oh yeah.
Never thought about that.
Yes.
That was not on my radar.
Because
what about
because even like going into a chair pose or squat, say you wanted to give birth, standing up, and you're going to need to know how to have that breath, that exhale, pushing down. Like, so it's going to help, especially near the end, of your pregnancy. It's only going to help you to becoming prepared for labor and help with that pushing phase.
No, I wish somebody would have told me that. I would have paid better attention to my yoga classes. Whoopsies. What about misconceptions during pregnancy and postpartum? Is there anything there we should address about and how yoga relates to it?
There's a lot of misconceptions. I think that, it's not, pregnancy is not one size fits all, right? So we know this about this. So a lot of times there's these general guidelines that you're going to get. No twisting, no laying on your back. You're going to get all these guidelines, these very generic guidelines. And I understand where they're intended. I do understand that. Yeah. But unless there is like a a medical condition that you're watching out for, your doctor has told you need to watch out for this or watch out for that. Generally, you're not going to be on your back more than 7 minutes. You're not going to be on your back long enough to have that kind of feeling of putting that pressure. And feeling that you're going to know if it's it's kind of good because sometimes women end up on their back when they're sleeping and they freak out and you're like, you're going to wake up. You're going to feel something. You know what I mean? If you're putting the pressure. And I think that a lot of times you lay down on your back in yoga and happy baby feels amazing and you're not down there long enough to feel that pressure. And if you do, now you're being mindful in your body to change your position. Now, with that said, there's a lot of ways that you can adjust that. And, you can go up on an incline with the 2 blocks and the bolster. So we set you up on an incline. So if you're in a yoga class and you do feel that way, you can always set up yourself on an incline and have that rest, your shavasana, your last corpse pose, which is everyone's favorite, laying on their back. You can just put it up on the incline. Twists are also something that is really set a lot. Now, you don't want to, obviously, you don't want to restrict baby, right? So if you're going into it, you're not aggressively trying to twist against it. Of course, you're not going to want to do that, right? So that puts pressure on the baby if you're aggressively twisting. Now, just twisting this way, it's generally not going to put any pressure on the baby. You can easily take a spine twist and have your knee just cross over it. It can be a gentle twist. If it feels uncomfortable, then you go to more of an open twist, right? So that's generally what will happen. But just because you're kind of twisting this way against baby a little bit to feel that twist, because that's what we always miss, right? Like that spine twist, release that low back.
Yeah.
You can still, there's a form, there's modifications for all of that. And that's why it's important to go to either a prenatal yoga or a yoga teacher who, you know, is knowledgeable in that. There's so many modifications that I think that those kind of regulations don't take that in consideration, that there's so many modifications for these things that you can still enjoy those things.
I think that's a really important point that you brought up, is that I believe it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because you know better than me, but I think it's like an additional like 200 hours or something you have to have for like a prenatal yoga instructor, like certification. It's something like crazy. Well, I thought it was crazy compared to like what you need to get certified to be a yoga trainer, depending on where you go, or a yoga instructor. But it's pretty like intense because they really show you, from the research I've done, all these different things that are possible because the female body is so different during this time that they have to like take the time. Anyway,
and it's true, and it's forever changing too. Like we have a pelvic health physical therapist who works at Fit Mama's Tribe, which is amazing. We're collaborative with her a lot, and the research is constantly changing as well. So sometimes these things, these guidelines are out there, but it's forever changing. Like we're learning new things all the time. And yeah, I mean, most yoga instructors have to have 200 hours to be a yoga certified teacher. And most certifications will have like this small little section in prenatal, and they'll tell you, but again, it's going to be sometimes be just a general guideline, right? They're going to give you, but yoga teachers are generally, they want to learn those modifications for people, but they don't always, you know, they don't always have that knowledge to have, you know, to be able to use the blocks. Like blocks are your friend. Yoga blocks are your friend when you're expecting or not.
Sometimes you just need a little more support, you know, some days.
Anytime you want the floor to come up to you, that's what yoga blocks are for, right? It's meant for you to sit more comfortably in it. You don't have to sit in an uncomfortable, you know, even if you're doing a twist, it's just going to help lift up the floor a little bit so you can find more length so we're not crunching down. You know, there's a lot of modifications that are used for it that are really helpful.
Is there like an ideal candidate to practice prenatal or postpartum yoga? Is there anybody who shouldn't, you know, engage in this?
I mean, honestly, yoga, it's meant, I mean, I say this and people kind of laugh. It really is meant for everybody, right? So I think that as long as you're cleared by your doctor to exercise, right? Like to move your body, there's nothing that's like you're not allowed to be out of your bed, or we're like minimum movement. So as long as your doctor has cleared you for not even exercise, but movement, then there's always a modification as long as you're in the hands of somebody that knows those, right? So I think that that's important. It's also important to have that communication with your teacher. So if say you're dealing with, maybe you're cleared for movement, but there's something going on, right? Baby's not sitting in the right position. You should tell your teacher that, you know, and let them know that communication is really important. Don't just assume that they think, oh, she's expecting and we'll just, you know, I'll give her the basic, you know, like open up that conversation, because they're only going to help you more in that. And they can maybe give those, sometimes they don't want to stop their flow of teaching. If you're not in necessarily a prenatal yoga class, you know, tell the teacher, they might have a modification for you to do that. But I think that with prenatal, most of the time, every teacher is going to have everything for any kind of ailments that you have going on, right? So, and you can move, even if you sit in child's pose, that whole class, it is beneficial to you.
It's just being there.
Just being on your mat, just sitting and breathing. Maybe you do the breath, the belly breathing, and you do, you know. So I think that it's truly for everybody. And I think that, you know, there's yoga specialists that are specialized in more scoliosis. There's yoga specialists that are, so there's, you know, they have specializations, and I think it's important to find the right person to guide you in that practice. They're just there to guide you. That's really the yoga instructor's job.
That's a good point. Because there's definitely yoga instructors I'm like, ugh. Or like even a fitness class, like, you know, I was a big body pumper for like a long time, and I would only go to certain classes with certain instructors because if I was having an off day, I needed their energy to like lift me up, kind of thing.
Yeah, I always tell my clients and I just like, I'm here just to guide you. This is your practice. So like, and I'm here to make it more comfortable for you and to challenge you, but make you more comfortable. And that's important to know, that the teacher is there for you. You're not there to perform for them.
Oh, I love that you said that. Because someone said something similar in a different podcast on a different topic, but it's like, the people who, your practitioners, whether it's a yoga instructor, whether it's a doctor, they're there for you. Yes. You know, like they're there to help you. Oh, that's good advice. Just good advice. What about mommy and me classes? Like, do you know about any of the benefits for those?
Socialization and community.
And there you have it.
I mean, there is a lot of there's a lot of benefit to that. I mean, obviously it's time and connection outside of your home with your child. And that's really important too, because we get in, especially like postpartum, you get into this, you know, phase where you feel like you're by yourself, maybe with your partner, and you're just by yourself. And it's so important to be with other mommies that are like, they're right there with you. I mean, there's nothing invaluable to, I mean, it's so valuable to you. It is just, and whether you're connecting with your child, like, and learning ways to connect with your child. So a lot of mommy and yoga classes, they'll teach you ways to kind of stretch, help with digestion. If your baby's dealing with gas, you know, things like that, and then there's a lot of ways that they can, you know, teach you how to work out with your child. You know what I mean? There's a lot of ways we can start to build back that core strength while using, you know, I teach baby wearing bar as well. And it's a great way to like kind of tap into your body while having that connection. If you feel like you didn't want to leave your child to go do your workout or have that time, it's a way to kind of do both and have that time for yourself. But postpartum depression is such a problem. And I think that like in general, whether you have postpartum depression or not, after that fourth trimester is hard. And you need other mommies. You need other parents. You need that time to connect with other women, and then be outside to find ways to connect with your child too, because that could also be something difficult for you as well. You know, finding things for you to do, so you feel like you're doing something for yourself at the same time.
Yeah, and it's good for your mental health. That's for sure. When I had my kid, I was in Dallas by myself, and I had one friend, and our kids are 5 days apart, so we're both like, you know, we don't, none of our friends had kids, like, you know, that lived close to us. So when I moved back to Baltimore, like, was with a whole group of people who had all kinds of kids, like, of all different ages. I just remember my one friend saying, I was like, oh, he's not sitting up yet. And my son was like 6 months. And she goes, oh, just put him on the couch and put it like a pillow behind him. And I was like, oh, why didn't I think of that? And then literally that week he started sitting up on his own. I was like, but it was something so dumb that somebody who has an older kid told me, and I never thought of, but it was like the easiest thing. Like and that was like a moment that crystallized for me that like, oh yeah, you do need to get out there and talk to other people. Google doesn't have all the answers.
Like you got to get off your screen and go and be with people, you know? And I think that like, getting out of the house and being with other parents is so important, because it just makes you feel not alone. And also, I also find that a lot of the relationships that develop in those classes, they continue on past that. You know what I mean? Because then their children know one another, and then it can go into toddler yoga, which is also really amazing, but also whole nother, you know, I don't necessarily teach that one too much because I have my own toddlers, but
right. Heard.
But it's really nice to, you know, like it's really good for you to also like manipulate the baby's body to learn how to like, you know, stretch their body, and they learn how they do a lot of mommy and yoga also has like little massages for the feet, and you can, you know, try to like, you know, have a calm relaxation time between the two of you. And it's just like, you like learn new things about like ways for you to connect. That's not the day in and day out stuff.
I love that. Is there anything else we didn't know we needed to know about prenatal and postpartum yoga? Or should I say pregnancy and postpartum
it's also
yoga?
Really important. I feel like I did not tap into this till later on because I had this at my fingertips, but a pelvic health physical therapist is super important. And if you're feeling any kind of pain, if it's like pubic symphysis or a pain in the pubic bone, I mean, there's so many things that just, you know, you can have like a third eye and they're like, it's pregnancy. Right. You know what I mean? There's so many things that happen in pregnancy, right? I mean, obviously you don't have third eye, but you know, there's so many things that happen. And I feel like there's someone there always to help you in that. You do not need to sit in that. And most of the time, if it's happening maybe in that prenatal stage, it could continue in post. So there's never like a bad time to see a pelvic health PT. And honestly, like if you're already feeling like pressure and you're already peeing and you're feeling that incontinence, like it's best to go ahead and see that pelvic health PT and have that one-on-one when you feel like you need it. Because they're, oh my gosh, the knowledge they have and what can make a difference is huge. Teaching you how to, if you're not sure how to feel that pelvic floor engagement, go see a pelvic health PT, even just one session. They can help you with that. And I think it's only going to benefit you postpartum and, you know, and in your labor delivery. So
I think that's a really good note too, because we've been conditioned to think that certain things are, normal, but they're common and it doesn't make them normal. And if you're doing like a yoga and again, Fit Mama's Tribe has a lot of like postpartum classes that are geared to, you know, strengthening those muscles that have been strained. So if you're still feeling pain or peeing or like when you sneeze or a million other things that happen and you're like, well, I've been strengthening and like, and it's not strengthening, like there's probably something else going on, like listen to your body. So that's a really good note. And the pelvic floor PT that you work with, like, and I know this because I've chatted with Claire before, Claire Merriman, you guys can work together. So I think that's what also is a good thing to highlight about your practice in particular, or I should say your business in particular, is like a full, you know, service. Like, okay, we're going to get you healthy, but we're going to make sure that all of these things are healthy. And I think that's a really good thing to point out to anybody who's tuning in. Like, it could be this or it could be that. And we know someone and we can work on that together with that, you know, with your permission, obviously, is client, patient, practitioner kind of thing.
It's true because I mean, we're not, we have a lot of knowledge, and you know, we're still always constantly learning. But then there's sometimes we're like, I think you need to go see Claire. And at this point we'll pass over to, you know, Miriam Pelvic Health, and she's amazing. And then she's ready to push them. Okay. Now she's ready to come back. And this is, you know, once they say the go ahead, and we work collaboratively, and that's really important because you know, the stresses on your body, even postpartum that happened, even just carrying the car seat or, you know, like, I mean, that is, you know, sitting and nursing or giving the baby a bottle all the time. All those things create so many different imbalances in your body. And you should never feel afraid to reach out because there's help out there. And it's important that you reach out because it's only going to continue. I feel like I did that in my first pregnancy. I didn't reach out. I thought, I got this. I know what I'm doing. I'm a specialist. And then I still didn't know everything I needed to know. And I continually learned, you know, you can't.
Yeah.
You can't.
As soon as you master that one phase, there's a new one to, you know, grow from, if you will. And no one tells you how heavy the damn car seat is. Like with the baby in it too. It's like all of a sudden. And,
we're like holding the baby on one side and then you bump your hip out on one side. So that's the thing. A lot of times in yoga, we come in and you don't have that, you know, afterwards they're like, I'm so imbalanced. And they're like, looking at me lopsided. I'm like,
right.
You know, and because there's so many, you're always holding the baby on one side or you're holding with the arm or your hip. And those things all come into play. And then we start having pain on one side versus the other. And so it's like, I think I had more ailments postnatal than I had ever in my years dancing as a career.
You know, I'm just going to capitalize on that because that is so true. To this day, I always held Declan on my right side. And to this day, I'll lean to my left leg. And when I catch myself do it, I immediately switch sides now. Yeah. Because I'm like, you've been doing that for 4 years. You better balance it out. Like, wow, like what are you doing? Yeah. But I can feel it like in my body all the time.
Yeah. And that's why too, like, you know, even like strength training is also really important. You know, I teach a class that's called Yoga Sculpt. So it's yoga with weights. And a lot of times I have my pre and post, I have them all together, you know what I mean? And it's important to have that strength with it too, because you need a lot of strength after that baby. That's why it's also important to keep that strength up while you're prenatal, because you have to lift, you know, your baby could be, you come out, you could have a 10, 11 pound baby, or eventually you are going to have a 10, 11 pound baby.
Right,
and
exactly.
You have to learn how to like have that, or lift up that car seat to go up from a weird, awkward position, or put the baby down so they don't wake up. You know what I mean? And so there's a lot of things. There's a lot of squatting. There's a lot of, lunching.
It's a lot of stretching too, like getting into the cribs and like, and I mean, this awkward carry, like you're talking about, like tweaking your back. I've definitely done that.
And your core strength is not back yet, right? So like you're not, you haven't tuned into that core, develop that core strength back after baby. And that's really when you can really hurt yourself, because then you're doing those reaches, there's no engagement there. So it's a lot more than people think. But we're here for it. We're here to help.
Right? That's why we have all this fun stuff. That's why you guys have an amazing business down there. And I'm talking to people to be like, you guys need to know this shit. No one told you it. Now you need to fucking know it.
I mean, luckily it's talked about a lot more than even like my son, my oldest of 3 boys is now 9. And he, but even 9 years ago, like there was not this much information. There's just like, I felt like I was the only information that I was giving to people when I was living in New York, and I was giving them everything that I could, and I still was learning. And so I feel like there's just not, there's some more and more stuff coming on. There's more resources, but it's really important to find someone that can really help you and knows what they're talking about, for sure. Well,
that's awesome. Is there anything else that we should know? Did we miss anything?
I don't think so. I think that, I think too, we have an online program too. If you're not here in St. Augustine, if you go onto our website, fitmamastribe.com, we have an online resource called Fit Mamas on the Go. It's an online fitness subscription. And so we make sure everything is prenatal friendly, has a little symbol on it. So you can guide that. You're going to give you all the modifications and all the things.
Wow.
And we also have a course that we made with our pelvic health PT called Fit Mamas to Be. And it takes you through prenatal, and we collaborated with her. So it's a combination of us and her giving exercises and modifications for those exercises. Of course, there's prenatal yoga on there, and stretches and things like that. But also she breaks down that pelvic floor engagement I was talking about and all those things that are super important in prenatal. And so that's something also to check out. You can, if you're not in St. Augustine, you can check that out too.
No, that's a good note. I forgot about the online resources that you guys have.
Yeah,
because if I would have known you guys existed when I was pregnant, I would have been on that in a heartbeat. No one told me this shit. Now I'm telling everybody else.
Exactly.
That's all
as long as we gotta shed the light on all of it though.
I know. I'm like, no. Oh my God, I gotta. Then I'm gonna cut myself off. But every time someone tells me that they pee when they sneeze, I'm like, no, go talk to your physical therapist. Go. You're like, wow.
It's what I call peeing and sneezing at the same time. Peezing. We don't want to peeze.
Appeasing. No, we don't want to peeze. Oh, Christina, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This is Christina from Fit Mamas Tribe. You can find them in St. Augustine or fitmamastribe.com. And your Instagram is at fitmamastribe, right? Yeah, perfect. I'm the mom who knows nada. My name is Brianna, and I hope that you are having fun learning all the things you didn't know you needed to know. There's a lot of them.